Rev up your engines! James Self says, Scotty, hope this doesn't happen, but if you're not able to do videos, will they be in archives to see in the future? It's YouTube. As long as YouTube's going, they'll show them, they run advertisements, they make money. Who knows? Maybe I'll be dead 100 years later. They'll be on the internet still going along. Who knows? I'm not going to stop anytime soon. I'm having too much fun helping people out. Whereas can help people out, have a lot of fun, and make money at the same time. That's almost impossible in our society today. Almost everything's a line of baloney. Work for some corporation where they treat you like scum. I just read that Elon Musk's Tesla factory in China, people are living there and working because of the coronavirus. But they said after coronavirus, guess what? They're going to make them still live there. They're going to have 12-hour shifts and work 6 days a week. Things aren't that cool for a lot of people in a lot of places. I'm having fun. I'm not going to stop. General user says, Scotty, I got an '07 Lexus GS350. It has a vibration occurring sometimes when driving at low, high speed, and low speed. Can I have advice? All right, well, you get vibrations all over the place, all kinds of different speeds. The first thing to check on that is the tires and rims. You might have a bulged tire or a bent rim. Most problems will occur at one end or the other. You generally won't get a low-end vibration and a high-end vibration. You'll get one or the other. You have them both, and that is often the tires or the rims are bad. Pray it's that simple. Now, if it's not, we mechanics have special machines that we hook up all over the place, and we listen for the vibrations, and we can pinpoint right exactly where it's coming from. But mechanics charge $150 an hour up. So first, look at the tires. Maybe you got a bent rim or you just have a bad tire. Jack it up, spin the tires. You see them lump. You know, there's a lump in the cord. It's broken and you need to replace the tire. That's often what it is because tires are rubber. They heat up. They can become perfectly round again. Then they cool down. They're not as round. So it can come and go. Most things will be either low or high, but not both unless it's tires. JL says, Scotty, I got a 22 Ford Raptor. Should I trade in for new Tundra TRD Pro? Tundra will be less off-road capable, better reliability. What do you think? Okay, well, normally I'd say you'd be out of your mind for trading in a 22 Raptor. You would lose your shirt. But we live in strange times indeed. You might be able to sell that Raptor for more money than you paid if you can do it and get a Toyota. Now, just realize the new Tundras have the V6 dual turbos. They did have some problems with the new turbos in them. So maybe I'd keep the Raptor another year and then see if they fixed all the stuff in the Toyota, then get it. Because I don't think prices are going to change anytime soon with our hyperinflation society and politicians who just want to tax and spend and tax and spend. I can't see prices coming down anytime soon. Roy B says, Scotty, I damaged an alloy wheel on my Fiesta 1.4 titanium automatic driving down a pothole. Okay, realize there are places that can fix those alloy wheels. I knew a guy in Houston. He didn't actually do it. I was kind of miffed because I took a customer's wheel to him. He said, yeah, we fix them. Then I come in 2 days later, where is it? Oh, we're not done yet. And I said, you're not even doing it here. No, we sent it to this other place. I'm like, why didn't I just go there? Why did I go to you? You're just the middleman. It took them a whole week. I got it back and it was excellent. They did a good job. The guys really know how to fix it, but ask them the price first. Because you might find you can buy one in a junkyard cheaper. They're going to fix yours. They got to fix them cheaper than a new one. Otherwise, no one would pay them to fix. So find the price of a new one. And if you can get it fixed for a third or a half, go ahead. If they want more, tell them to go to Blazes and start looking in junkyards for one. Tyler Darby says, Scotty got an 87 Toyota Supra. Was here to find Grandpa. Do you think it'd be a cool car to restore? Here's the thing. A lot of those Supras had problems with the cams. The overhead cams would wear out and it cost a fortune to fix them. And I had a customer buy one of those and he ended up selling it on. He brought it to me. I said, well, I'll work on it. Then I found out that half of the parts Toyota no longer had anymore. I needed some electronic computer modules. Toyota didn't sell anymore. They said, pod luck, go find one in a junkyard or whatever. They didn't make them anymore. There are many things, the parts on those that you can't get. Now, depends what you want to do with it. Some guys put American V8 engines and use them as drift cars. What do you want to do with it? But if you want to restore it as the way it came from the factory, I wouldn't waste my time in the United States. You're probably going to have so much hassle getting parts, and then you got to order special parts from Japan. It's going to cost you a fortune, and it's an old car. It's 87, right? You can't hook up modern computers and say, oh, it needs this is one. That's OBD1. The diagnosis on that is crap. You're going to be doing a lot of educated guesswork working on that thing. It's not like a new car, 95 or newer. All you got to do is plug in a scan tool and you get all kinds of data. That you're going to get almost nothing, even if you have a factory scan tool. It's too old. Hey, and so Scotty, what do you think of the first generation Jeep Liberties? Not much. Jeep Liberties are one of the early cheaper Jeeps. They kept deciding, hey, we want to make a lot more money. So, Fiat Chrysler. What are we going to do? Let's make Jeep Liberties. Let's make a cheaper Jeep that costs less to make and we'll still charge a lot of money for it and sell it to people. They do not hold up like the regular Jeeps, like a Cherokee. Or I just did a video on a Rubicon that guy had custom made. He bought for 55 grand. It was a phenomenal vehicle with a diesel engine and with the German 8-speed automatic transmission. It was a phenomenal vehicle. cost a lot of money, but it was well made. The Liberties, they're cheaply made. I would not buy one. If you really like Jeeps, go back and get a Willys one or get one from the 60s or 70s. Don't buy a Liberty. They're not that well made. They don't hold up over time. Damien Passor says, what's your thoughts on the 91 Mercedes-Benz 190E 2.3 automatic in excellent condition? Back in the 90s, Mercedes made some pretty good cars. It's an E 2.3. It's a 4-cylinder inline engine. Solid built engine. And being a cheaper one, a 190E, it doesn't have all that computer crap. 91, of course, they had less computer crap, but the fancy one still had a reasonable amount. You get a guy like me to check it out and say it's in good shape, go ahead and buy it. But don't trust anybody. That car is what? 32 years old. You're buying a 32-year-old Mercedes-Benz. Don't pay much for it. You want a toy? Go ahead. I would not buy it as an everyday driver because there's too many seals and plastic parts that are going to crack and break and cost a fortune to fix. But if you get it cheap, it could be a good knockaround car. Like that guy who bought the $1,800 Mercedes convertibles I filmed in Tennessee. He's having fun with it. Kid Mike says, Scotty, my FJ Cruise is rattling sound when I accelerate, especially under load. Why is my engine pinging? Okay, something could be easily worn, and it could be as simple as your engine's got a little carbon buildup. Go to my friend's website, Bernie Thompson. He's in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he has automatic test solutions, ATS. Go to the website, buy 1 can of the fuel injection cleaner, put it in the gas tank, drive it, and see what happens. That cleans up carbon. See, if an engine has too much carbon inside it, the carbon, what does it do? It takes up space. If you have less space inside the cylinder because the carbon's there, that ups the compression ratio. If it ups it too much, when you accelerate, your engine will ping. Now, if you want to test it, put in 1 tank of like Shell Super Unleaded, the most expensive gas. If it stops pinging, you know it's that. Because that's higher octane gas, and that can take a higher compression before it pre-ignites. If you want to get into the physics of it, high octane ones have high compression engines, and they have to take a lot of compression before they blow up. So, if you make a high compression engine, running it on an engine that was made for low compression gasoline, but it's high compression out because carbon built up, it'll ping. Try cleaning it first. Now, if it's not that, it could be a worn timing chain or belt. That could be worn. That'll make it ping. You could have a problem in the ignition system, but a lot of times it's just carbon buildup and you clean it up. Joseph Albanese says, Scott, I got a 2022 Kilmer. How often should I change the tranny fluid? All right. Well, it's a Toyota. They tell you it's a lifetime fluid. Bunch of baloney. I would change it like every 50,000 miles. There's no dipstick, but you can learn how to drain it out and pump that amount of fluid in. Say 2.5 quarts come out, then you pump 2.5 of the new fluid. Buy it at Toyota. You want to use the right fluid. It's not that hard to do it. I do it every 50,000 miles or so. It's not hard to do. And realize when you change the transmission fluid in these modern ones, only 2.5, 3 quarts come out and they hold 8 or 10 or more. So you're just diluting it, so you got to do it relatively frequently. They say it's a lifetime, but that's BS. Ask them how long the warranty is, and they'll say, oh, well, the warranty's gone now. So their advice is also useless. They don't have to warranty anything, so they say, oh, it's lifetime. Well, your transmission broke, now you need a new one. Well, it's not under warranty anymore, so don't listen to them. Caesar Santillion said, I got a 94 Toyota pickup. I attempted to change the timing chain. It didn't turn on. It backfired. What can I do now? Well, you probably didn't hook it up right. Realize one thing. That's a timing chain Toyota engine, right? It's not an interference engine. Odds are you didn't damage anything. What you want to do is you got to set the engine at top dead center at the 0 mark on the crank, and then have the distributor pointed at the number 1 cylinder. Then that is where you put the marks on the chain, on the cams on the top. You probably find out it's not lined up right. You have to take it apart and put it back together again. Unless you really mess something up, but that's generally, guys don't set them up right. And if they're off a few teeth, they'll backfire, they won't run. Pray you just did that. It's not an interference engine, so it should not have damaged anything doing it. Shirley Stock says, my cat started a dry grass fire and melted the steering rack boots. Cat converter started a fire and my tall, dry grass melted things. So I've been changing the fuel lines and wires. I got it running, but it melted one of the boots on my steering rack. I'm not sure if I should live with it or should I get it fixed. The boot on your power steering rack is a dust shield. It's to keep dust off of the rack rod so it doesn't corrode and eat up the power pressure seal that's inside the rack. It slides on a seal. Then it will start leaking like mad. It's mainly a dust shield, but you do want to have an on. So I would say go and get it replaced. You're going to drive that car a long time. If too much dust and dirt gets in there, then it'll wear the seal out. Then you got to replace the rack, which costs a fortune. You can get a boot for $25 aftermarket, and all you got to do is take the tie rod off, and then you slip the boot on and off. It's not that hard of a deal. Ask a mechanic what they charge. You can watch. I have videos on doing it. You can see if you want to try it yourself. It's not that big of a deal where changing the rack is a small fortune. So I would do it now if I were you. Cool Man Cool 63 says, Scotty, what do you think of monster trucks? I have a 2-year-old grandson here in Massachusetts, and he loves monster trucks. He has all these monster trucks. It's such a money-making thing. I looked at one thing, there were like 1,700 some different models that you could buy. He's never actually seen a monster truck driving down the road making a noise. It would probably scare him because he hates loud noises. Monster trucks were made to entertain people in arenas, crushing cars and stuff. It's kind of an Americana bit of insanity. It's just for entertainment. You take them on the street, it's dangerous. They can flip over. Of course, they get horrendous gas mileage. They break all the time because they weren't made to be that big, jacked up that high. The transmission shafts will snap off because they're at too high of an angle from lifting it too much. But I mean, they're interesting bit of Americana. That's what I'd say about it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.